Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Walter Stuber of the Wolcott Presbyterian Church, and to my right is Elder Andy Demay, who will be helping me officiate the service. I welcome you all to the church here today and to the celebration of life of, as I knew him, Bill Cahoon. Before I begin with the call to worship, just a few housekeeping things. If you would join me in the ancient Christian tradition of turning off your cell phones, or at least silencing them. God wants to call you. God can do so without the phone, believe it or not. And the other thing is to let you know the reception today will be at the fire hall. We have a lot of people, and we weren't sure if there'd be enough space at our social hall, so we have the fire hall in Wolcott here for that. I don't know if there's any other directions I need to give you. You'll probably hear a few more, like, right before Amazing Grace. We're only going to sing 2 verses because I might get enthusiastic and try and sing all 6 if I'm not limited. So there's some other small things like that you may notice, but really we're here to celebrate the life of Bill and all that he meant to us. All right, so let us begin with this call to worship. Relatives and friends, let us begin our time together by being reminded by the Spirit who has brought us to this time and place, where Christ has been raised from the dead so that we can say, "O death, where is your victory? O grave, where is your sting?" Thanks be to God, who in Jesus Christ has shown that there is life beyond the grave. We celebrate the fact that Jesus Christ has been victory over life and death. We have come to this place celebrating life of us here in memory of the experience. Our presence here affirms the fact that there exists a great eternal power within us called love, and this shall never die. It is the Spirit of love that has brought us here today. It is the living Spirit of God's love that has brought us together. It is our love for Bill, love for one another, and love for God. Let us unite our spirits in praising God, who brings life out of death and hope out of despair. Say something about their loved one. I usually give some family members first priority at that, but I'll be coming around with this microphone if you have something to share as well. It doesn't have to be, deep and serious. It can be funny or lighthearted too. But I'll start with Dwayne and Lisa. Either way.
Yeah, go on up.
Okay.
Yep. and I obviously were brothers, and we worked together for many years. We started working together at Cahoon Farms, and we worked there for about 50 years together. We brought different talents to the business, but each of us was able to provide direction and to the building up of Cahoon Farms. I'm grateful for Bill's help in doing that. Bill's also, we had very different interests when it came to time after work. Bill was interested in building up a farm and a CA storage, and he was very successful in that. And it will become a blessing to his family as time goes on. Both of us started working for Dad in 1961 and were general laborers. Dad raised string beans, sour cherries, and apples. Bill and I were equally employed driving tractors and performing equal tasks. In the winter, we trimmed trees. In the spring, summer, and fall, we did all the jobs required to grow string beans, care for the orchards, and harvest the crops, and operate Dad's beginning processing facilities. Every spring, Bill and I plowed the 100 acres of land that we planted with string beans. Bill and I had the same Massey Ferguson Super 90 tractors, and we competed all day to see who had the advantage over the other plowing the field. The difference between us was in how we managed the wet areas without getting stuck. It was more fun than work. Bill was always slightly better than me. One day at lunch, Bill got in a conversation with Dad about how superior the Super 9 tractor was to his Ford. Dad, always a Ford fan, challenged Bill to a plowing contest. Dad drove his Ford 2 miles to the field intent and demonstrating how superior his Ford tractor was. Bill let Dad get a good start down the furrow, and then Bill pulled into the furrow behind Dad. He soon caught up with Dad and pulled up within 6 inches of Dad's plow and stayed there. Dad, always super competitive, raised his plow up a bit to pull away, but he couldn't get Bill away from him. He kept lifting the plow up a little bit until eventually he was just skimming the ground, and still Bill was there. When he got to the end of the furrow, Dad parked the tractor in the hedgerow and left, and we still don't know how he got home or how he got his tractor. Later, Dad got revenge. Bill had bought a pool table, and he invited Dad down to play pool. And so Bill let Dad have the first shot at the rack, and Bill didn't know that Dad was pretty good. When he cleaned the table on the first go-around. Bill never got a shot. What Bill didn't know was that Dad skipped school on occasion and went to the local pool hall and practiced pool while he was in high school. And later, when he was in college, he became the best pool player at college at Cornell. So Dad was pretty good at that. Dad was always very competitive. In the early 60s, Dad built a small plant to peel apples and deliver them fresh to bakers in about a 100-mile radius. The sales from small processing plants soon grew so that Dad needed a larger plant to produce apples for his fledgling business. We helped Dad cut down trees from the farm's wooded areas. We delivered logs to a sawmill, stacked the lumber to cure for a year, and then built the wrappers to the new building which exists today. Bill helped Dad to install peas peeling equipment which was used to peel some sliced apples. In the mid-60s, Dad secured a contract to sell Mr. Smith Pye's frozen apples. In the second year, R.P. Smith complained he was not getting enough product. To accommodate him, Bill asked Bill and I to run a night shift, which we did for many years. Bill was a chief mechanic, and together we produced more pounds of apple slices per shift than Dad and his crew. In 1979, Bill and I bought the processing business for Dad, and he retired. Statistically, we had about a 50% chance of succeeding. As of today, we have beat the odds. From the debt payments, Mom and Dad had sufficient funds to be comfortable in their retirement years. Bill and I paid ourselves modest salaries and used any excess cash to grow the business. Many people helped to make Cahoon Farm successful. Bill was one of those persons. He had a unique combination of talents that were important to our success. Bill was a tireless worker, was very social, and was very talented at constructing machinery for the processing plant. He was also exceptional at setting up machinery to get the best performance. When we started using Pacific peelers, Bill was in charge of the peelers. He consistently got a 65% yield, while today it's down to 62 to 63%. Bill designed and built many refinements for the Atlas Pacific peelers that improved their output in quantity and quality. Bill used his social skills to meet orchard farmers to convince them to sell apples to Cahoon farmers for our processing plant. Bill knew all his local farmers and had a good relationship with them. Bill was always successful in purchasing enough apples to manufacture the apple slice dices for our customer. Bill was always ready to have a joke or to have fun. One year he decided to pick on String Bean. String Bean was a tall guy, 6'3", probably the strongest guy I ever met. And what Bill did is he jacked up the car and then he blocked it up so that the wheels were just barely off the ground. So when String got in the car and started it up and put it in gear, the wheels turned, but it didn't move. So String got out and looked around and didn't see anything that could be wrong, so he got in the car and tried it again. And the same thing happened. Well, at that time, when he got out, he started looking around and saw a lot of us laughing over in the corner. And so he thought, well, maybe there's something I need to look closer to. So he looked underneath the car, and sure enough, it was blocked up. So we went over and helped him to unblock it. Bill was famous for playing jokes and building relationships with the people in the business. And a lot of people really revered Bill. And so we appreciate all those that came to the calling hours. In September 2001, Tom Facer came to Cahoon Farms to propose that we build a canning plant. Birdseye had decided to close the canning plant in Red Creek. We agreed to an 8-year contract with Birdseye to can cherries starting in July of 2002. To build a canning plant in 10 months was a huge challenge. We did build the plant, and Bill was primarily responsible for the success. He laid out the floor plan using some old equipment from the Comstock plant in Red Creek and designed and built equipment that was necessary to complete his floor plan. We were ready to can cherries by July 2002, just 10 months later. In June 2002, an engineer came to the plant and saw the plant and said it would be impossible for him to build that plant in less than 2 years. So Bill made the impossible possible. Bill has been ill with a heart that got weaker every year. I think he had the same problem my dad did. He had the same situation. For many years, Bill was not able to work. In the last couple of years, Bill stayed at home. Tom moved into Bill's house, and Bill's family cared for him. Bill was very lucky to have that kind of situation in his life. His mind was always clear and able to make choices that would affect his family. During this last year, Bill and I talked about the ownership of Cahoon Farms. We wanted to be responsible stewards for the assets under our control. We decided to help our families with substantial funds to be dispersed annually from Cahoon Farms. Both Bill and my family and I would receive the equal funds. And then we organized Cahoon Farms in a way that would continue to grow, be fair to employees, stockholders, and to remain a positive influence in our community under our oversight by a board of directors. Bill lived a very fruitful life. He loved his family and has left a legacy that has enriched his family. It was my good fortune to have worked with him. Thank you.
Next up, we have, Lisa, would you like to speak? Step right up.
I guess I'm a little bit more modern than Dwayne. I'm going to use my phone. My brother Tom said that he believed it is truly God's work that brought all the people together in celebration of Dad's life. Family, friends, co-workers, and the great community of Wolcott. First of all, I want to thank my siblings for taking care of Dad over the past few months. He never wanted to go into a facility, and he wanted to stay at home. Tom, Pam, Beth, Mary, and Will made sure that that didn't happen. He loved to look out the window at the orchards, and he was always talking about what was going on there at the end of every day. He would ask everybody, how's it going? Are they going to get the cherries picked? How are the apples? There was a big controversy at cherry time about what was scald. I heard about that for days. My sisters did a great job with the flowers. Thank you. I'm sure when they were picking the apple blossoms and the flowers, the whole thing that was going through their head was, Grandpa's going to be mad, Dad's going to be mad about the apples that hit the ground. He hated that. He just hated that. We also know how the community loved him. I can't tell you how many people have told me, and Tom, and Pam, and Valerie, and Will, and Beth, and Mary, stories over the last few days, and how much he would do anything for anybody in the community. Next, I wanted to share some memories of us as kids. He loved being a dad. He really did. One thing that he really loved was when we were little girls, Beth and Mary, he loved dressing us up alike. And he would wear a coordinating outfit and get our picture taken. He just thought that was so funny. He used to call me Switch. He had nicknames for everybody, but I'll just speak for mine. He called me Switch, and I always thought, what an odd nickname. It's so weird. And he said it's because a switch is a whip and a whip is smart. What a smart man and a deep thinker, huh? He just loved nicknames. He took us kids with him everywhere. Well, actually, us girls. Us girls were always in the car with him or in the truck. Tom, I don't know how you got out of it. He would make his rounds around town during the weekend. He would stop at Blake's gas station and talk to the guy filling up his tank for way, way too long. Then he would go over to Russell's, and he would go inside, and us girls would have to sit out in the car, and we'd sit out there and say to each other, what the heck is he doing in there? He just told us he had to get some screws. What is he doing? So we'd argue about, all right, who's going to go in there and get him? So when it was my turn, I would go in there and get him. And you know what he was doing? He was just standing there at the counter talking. I was like, Dad, did you know we were all waiting out there this whole time? But they loved him in there. When I first got my first car, he took me to Blake's. I didn't know this was going to happen. It was a Saturday. And he said to me, you're going to learn how to change your oil. And I said, don't I get a choice? And he said, no. He left me there all day. He thought he was preparing me for the world. I learned how to change the oil, got my clothes all messed up. I learned how to change the fuses, learned how to do that, learned how to check the oil pressure, the water, the tire pressure. So he was either preparing me for the world or maybe he wanted me to be a mechanic, I don't know. Other times when he had the girls in the car, doing his drives around town was one of his favorite things. He never would say it, but his actions showed that he loved all of you and will get every single one of you, everybody. Or maybe he was just gathering local gossip, who knows? Because he loved that too, you all know that, right? When he got older, his driving rounds got a little bit different. First of all, one of us kids had to do the driving for him instead, because he couldn't. He would have us do a couple of laps around the plant, always stopping at the scale house, waiting for the guy to come out and talk. The guy would come out and he would point over at me and he goes, "Do you know who she is?" And the guy goes, "Well, I guess she looks a little like you." And he goes, "That's my daughter, Lisa." After doing a couple circles around the plant, he would say, "Now let's go see my girls." And I was confused because we were his girls. The four of us were his girls. And I said, "What are you talking about, Dad? Who are your girls?" And he said, "Emily and Ginny." So we would try. He knew, he was really fastidious about that because he knew that if he left the house at the wrong time, you would miss your walk in the morning. So after he would talk to the two of you, he would wind his way over to Bob's. Because he knew that maybe there was a good chance that he would run into Bob and Shelley walking. As we made our way over there, he would point out every single orchard. And I could probably do it now too, because it was the same story every time. He would point out the orchard and tell me who owned it now. And when we couldn't do it, Nikki would do it. Remember Nikki? By the way, let me just say something, let me just vary off my script for a second. Nikki was his nurse, his granddaughter, his companion for a long time. And she loved him a lot, and he loved her a lot. They were a great pair. Okay, Nikki? Thank you thank you to his brothers and sisters for providing that joy for him. Another part of Dad's social side was he had a funny side. In the winter, when we lived on Northrop Avenue in town, we would drive by the bowling alley, and there would be like about dusting of snow on the ground, and we knew instantly what was going to happen. So instantly your heart would start going, and you got nervous. And then he would say, "Hold on." And then we would start screaming, and he would start doing donuts in Northrop Avenue. And we would all face plant on one side of the car, because we didn't wear seatbelts back then. So we all ended up one side of the car. Dad sat up there, he. One time, Father Hoare was complaining in church about how the grass wouldn't grow. So one night, in the middle of the night, Dad got up, ran up there with some fertilizer. And he ran around with fertilizer, fertilizing the whole lawn. The next weekend at church, Father Hoare stood up and he goes, "Our prayers have been answered." And Dad just sat down there, back there quietly. He. Came to pick me up at college once, and I was having a little bit of a hard time. It was in the Adirondacks, and I don't know if anybody's ever been in the Adirondacks, but it was dark out, and you know the roads are thin and narrow and twisty and windy and everything. Well, he thought it would be funny. He thought that it would make me feel better if we pretended the lights went out on the car. And instantly, I sat up in my seat and I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Can you see anything?" "I can't see anything." And he's just sitting there, he. He got us home safe. This is what I would ask all of you. Never forget that he. He met the love of his life, Valerie, in 1981. I remember the first time I met Valerie. He brought us girls, the three of us girls were sitting in the back seat. And this beautiful woman comes walking out of the house in Savannah. I thought she looked really cool. You were wearing clogs, and you were wearing blue hose, and a blue jean skirt. I don't remember what your shirt was, but I thought you looked so cool. And you sat in the front seat, and you turned around to all of us, and you said, "So nice to meet you," and you were so nice to us. Thank you. And then Pam, I love both of you because you both taught me a lot about being a girl. My mom was, well, she was a little masculine, so thank you for that. Okay? I'll finish with this. Dad absolutely loved NRW sports. He went to as many games as he could. Dad was on the soccer game. When he played soccer, when he would go and watch soccer, he loved coaching from the sidelines. And one of his favorite things to say was, "Boot it." I can't tell you how many times I heard him say, "Boot it." What a great coach. Once a week he would go play adult basketball. Personally, I didn't get it. What was the appeal of a bunch of smelly old men guarding each other? But somehow he loved it. You know, I wouldn't like it. And I know, Will, he did the same for you. He was at every single one of your games and he was proud of you. He was so proud of you. He talked about you all the time. He did. He made time to go to every single one of his kids' sporting events. At my swim meets, and I would always look over and see my dad standing by the door wearing his hoodie with the hood on, with it tied, with his hands in his pockets. I was swimming, so I couldn't hear him say, "Boot it." But I'm sure he was thinking, and in swimming it really didn't make sense. So I wouldn't have known what he was talking about, but he didn't know much about swimming. In conclusion, he loved Wolcott and the people in it. Thank you for being his friends. He loved his kids. All of you. And he loved his grandchildren. And he loved his great-grandchildren. He was really proud. He was so, so proud. Thank you for returning his love. He always loved his brothers and sisters, all of you. Thank you for being his playmates and fellow mischief makers. He loved NRW sports. Thank you for providing him much joy. We'll all miss him, but he's somewhere. He's still having a good laugh with all of us. I'm sure he's right now going, he. Thank you for all being so good to my dad.
We had a bit of a list of speakers, and understandably, if some of you that wanted to speak have changed your mind, that's okay, but next on our list, we had Will.
No.
Okay, so we don't have one. Would anyone else like to speak? You don't have to come up front if you want.
You can pass it, people can project.
Yeah, and if you want to pass the microphone, Pastor Walter, then.
All right, I have the gift of the gab, but I believe with all the people here, there's maybe a few stories. Remember, some stories are for the reception, though, not the main service. But I only know good stories about Bill myself, so I'll lift it up at this time if anybody would like to share a thought. Okay. Actually, I'll come around this way.
My name is Nikki, and I'm Bill's granddaughter. I had the privilege of taking care of him since February, even though he didn't want to be taken care of at all. We had a lot of time together to get to this point. We talked a lot about what would happen and how he wanted to go. And I remember asking him, do you have any regrets? And he looked at me and said, I've had a wonderfully blessed life. I have loved my family, my friends, and I don't regret anything. He said, for me to live this long with the health conditions that I've had, was a blessing. He said, now I just want to get to the point where I can see my mom and dad again. And it was helpful to me to know that he went at home, he went peacefully, and that day my daughter and I were changing his medication. He was smiling and laughing and joking and just being his wonderful self. He didn't go in pain, and he wanted everyone to know that he loved them. Prior to his death, my son, Caleb, who's 5, came over and he said, Grandma, we're going to watch the Fox in the Hound today. And I'm sure that Grandpa did not have that on his agenda. But he curled right up in that chair, Grandpa with his blanket, and Caleb with his blanket, and they sat there and they watched the Fox and the Hound. And as both of them drifted off to sleep, I thought to myself, there can't be more of an open heart and an example of just sincere love for his family. He loved his grandchildren and his great had a candy dish right next to him that they would always come over and take candy from. And being the diabetic that he was, one would have thought that he wouldn't allow it, but he did. So with that, I would just like to read something really quick. We met, it seemed such a short time ago. You looked at me, needing me so. Yet from your sadness, our happiness grew. And I found out I needed you too. I remember how we used to play. I recall those rainy days. The fire's glow that kept us warm. And now I find I'm all alone. Goodbye may seem forever. And farewell seems like the end. But in my heart's a memory. And there will always be.
Thank you. I remember visiting at home and you all were taking very good care of it. There was a Western on rather than the Fox and the Hound, as I recall. But, okay, other people might want to share a memory or thought. I'll do the auctioneer style, going once, twice, 3 times, and all God's children said, Amen. Amen. Just a personal Thanksgiving to share. The last time I was at the pulpit, I had a minor stroke and I was having trouble reading the smaller print that's on the Bible today. And after a month in the hospital and some rest time, I can now read to you the 23rd Psalm again. Praise be to God. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, and he leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup overfloweth. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And then on the hope of heaven, in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verses 1 through 7. This is something that Bill is experiencing now. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling of God is with people. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. And he who sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. Also he said, Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. And I said to me, It is done. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. The thirsty I will give water from without price from the fountain of the waters of life. The one who conquers shall have this heritage, and I shall be their God, and they shall be my children. Thanks be to God. Amen.
It's a wonderful thing to hear similar stories, and I'm afraid I might bore you a bit with a repetition of some that we have heard. But I think that that speaks to the consistency of the man that was Bill Cahoon. I'm going to start out with some scripture. Leviticus 26:4. Then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. I first came to know Bill Cahoon and his family in 1968. His eldest son Tom and I were in kindergarten together, and our folks would often get together for dinner, school events, scouting activities, or barbecues in the summer months. This turned into a lifetime of friendship, and indeed gained me sisters and brothers I might not otherwise have had. Bill worked long hours, and yet would come home with energy enough to wrestle or play flag football with us kids. He came from a large family, and his love of family history, and sense of community was ingrained in him. He also loved the land and the life he led as a farmer in our little corner of God's country. Bill was a Ford man, and I don't ever recall him owning another brand. He was always behind the wheel of a Ford. Whether a station wagon doing donuts on Northrop Ave in the winter, a pickup truck, or in later years a huge Lincoln Continental, or most recently a Lincoln MKZ. Every time I drive along Woodruff Road, I think of Bill and the countless trips he took back and forth to the farm in those Fords. Bill was a quiet and thoughtful man, often taking his time to reply to some statement or add to the conversation. He also had a wry and playful sense of humor. He had stories as well, stories about his childhood in Huron, stories about planting and harvests, about the misadventures or human interactions he had in daily life. Some of these stories I can't repeat in church. However, there is one of his favorite stories that I can repeat about church. In the early years, when Bill and his young family lived on Northrop Ave, they were parishioners at the Catholic Church. The priest was telling Bill about his new mower and how slow the grass was growing at the church. One dark night that very week, Bill went over to the church lawn with a hand spreader full of fertilizer and covered the whole yard. The following Sunday, the priest allowed as how God had heard his prayers, and the new mower was really getting the work out. Bill was a good father, and a discerning one at that. In 1981, when Tom and I graduated high school, Bill had a huge RV. We asked him if we could celebrate by taking it to Cahoon Lake State Park. He agreed, advising us to bring it back in good condition. After several boring days at Cahoon Lake, we decided it would be much more exciting at Virginia Beach and made the trip. We did indeed bring it back in good condition, though running on fumes. Of course, Bill was well aware of our trip before we even got back. But I don't recall him even mentioning it. He may have said something to Tom, I don't know. Everyone in our community knew Bill Cahoon. And there are countless folks that he helped along the way with employment, advice, or simply a helping hand. He loved the history of Huron and Wolcott and could converse for hours about local lore. And I had the honor of sharing many holiday meals around his dinner table. He was always happiest at those times, and although many would say it was apples, I have to say that the very best crop Bill ever produced was his family. He walks now with the Lord among the rows in heaven, and I'm sure he's smiling as he looks upon us even now, knowing that his legacy is both blessed and prosperous. And that is the conclusion to that, but I do have a public service announcement I was asked to make, which is that there is a huge volume of food at the fire hall after the event here. If you would like to attend.
benediction, I just want to let you know at the conclusion of the service, I will hand it over to the funeral director, Jim. He will instruct the pallbearers on leading the casket out, and then I will lead the immediate family out so they can get to the reception at the fire hall first. All right, with no further ado, great is God's faithfulness to us. Day by day, morning by morning, God's mercies we see. Bill saw them all his life, a good long life it was, and now he is home with the Lord, experiencing that eternity of faithfulness and joy and peace. As you go forth this day, may God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and give you peace. Amen. Jim, it is now in your hands.